creative and crafty people. I hope y'all are doing well today. Today, I'll be showing you how I created this fun and creative jasper and copper pendant. I will be using copper wire to make my pendant, but you can use whichever type of wire you'd like to make yours, such as silver, gold, and platinum, just to name a few. I will also be using some jasper beads, but again, you can use whichever type of beads you'd like. There are so many options out there. In fact, it can be downright overwhelming at all the choices you have. So as we get ready to create this pendant, remember, this is your creation and you get to create it the way you like it. If you'd like to learn how I created this fun pendant, then stick around and let's get creating. To get started on this project, we're going to need some 18 gauge wire, one piece cut at 10 centimeters in length. We'll need another piece cut at 5 centimeters in length. You'll also need some 26 gauge wire cut at 20 centimeters in length. We'll need 2 jasper beads, one 6mm and one 4mm bead. We're also going to need some chain for your piece. I'm using 20-inch copper chain. We'll need a pair of chain nose pliers, a pair of flathead pliers, some round nose pliers, some looping pliers, a pair of flush cutters, a chasing hammer, and a bench block. If you missed something in this materials list, you can either go back and rewatch this part of the video, or you can check out the materials list in the description down below. Now let's get started on this project. So to start off, we're going to need to grab our 18 gauge wire cut at 10 centimeters and our round nose pliers. We're going to grab the end of that wire and create a loop at the very tip of our round nose pliers. We're going to bring the end of that wire around to meet back with itself. And now we're going to create a very tight spiral all the way around. So we're going to continue spiraling this wire. Now once you get to the point where that wire is going to hit your round nose pliers, we need to remove those and grab our chain nose pliers. I'm going to grab that wire deep in the mouth of the jaws of those chain nose pliers and continue to spiral, but this time we're going to create a little bit of a space between the wire you're spiraling around and the spiral we've already started. We want just enough space to be able to fit the 26 gauge weaving wire. When we wrap our bead later, we're going to need that little bit of space. So here you could see I've got a space between the last part of that spiral to this part. And I'm just going to make a little adjustment here. I want it just a little bit closer. And now we're going to grab our chain nose pliers. I'm going to grab that wire right at the base of the spiral there. And in the center here, you could see like a little teardrop shape from that initial loop we made. At the bottom of that little loop, we're going to make a bend in this bottom wire at about a 90-degree angle. So there you can see that 90-degree angle there. And then we're going to grab our looping pliers, and with the 4mm mandrel, we're going to make a semicircle or a half circle or a half a loop, whichever you want to call it. So we're going to take the wire and wrap it around that 4mm mandrel only halfway. So here you can see I'm also turning that wire downward. The goal is to try to get that to be centered under that loop, the right side there. So here I'm going to bend that wire back up just a little bit, because you're imagining this is half of the circle that's going to be there. And here I'm going to show you, I'm going to grab that 4mm bead and place that in there, and see that's centered right under that little spiral at the top there. So now we're going to grab at the base of this 4mm semicircle, just straight down from where we made our last bend. We're going to make another bend about a 90-degree angle from that last little curve there. And I'm going to just make sure I get a nice crisp bend, like so. And then I'm going to grab my looping pliers again, and this time with our 7mm mandrel, we're going to grab that wire and create a 7mm loop all the way around. So here I'm going around, wrapping that back around there, all the way across. And I'm also going to turn my pliers a little bit just so I can make sure I center that loop with that top spiral. And now once we get our loop finished, I can take my looping pliers out, and I've created a circle there. Okay, now I'm going to grab my bead, the 6mm bead that goes on the base of this pendant. And I'm going to show you how that fits in there. You can see we've got a little bit of space around the bead, just enough for the weaving wire to fit in there along with the bead. And now we're going to go back up the other side of this pendant. So with my chain nose pliers, I'm going to grab the other side of this loop and make a bend directly across from the last bend we made. So again, we're going to bend this probably past the 90-degree angle this time, just so that we get a nice rounded curve once we use our looping pliers. I'm also making sure I get a nice crisp bend here. And there you can see that that loop meets right back up with itself there in the center. And now I'm going to grab my flathead pliers, and I'm just going to bend this wire back down straight across. Whenever we use those looping pliers, we want that loop to come up and around. And so it's best to go out to the side like that as much as possible. And now again with the 4mm mandrel on our looping pliers, we're going to grab the wire as close as we can and then turn the pliers inward until the pliers hit with the other side of the wire there, so that it fits perfectly inside of there. Because this is a 4mm circle or loop, and bring that all the way back across, the end of that wire back across. We're going to make sure it's nice and rounded like it should be. And there you can see we've got a perfect circle there. Now grabbing my chain nose pliers, we're going to make another bend right at the neck of this loop. So here you can see I'm making a little bit of a space. I'm not going right up against the bend of the first rounded area we made there. So I'm getting a nice, just a little tiny bit of space there. And then when I bend this wire, that little bend is going to protrude back in toward that area. So we want to account for that. And there you can see, when I push that wire back over, it still makes that perfect 4mm circle there. And now we need to grab the bead so you can see that that fits in there. If I can get that lined up. But there you can see it just floats around in there, just enough space for that weaving wire to fit in there. And now we're going to grab our flat nose or flat head pliers, and we're going to bend this wire back out to the side like we did the last time. Give it a nice crisp bend. And now we can take that wire and bend it up around the spiral. And I'm using the spiral as a guide here. So as long as you can hold that wire firmly against your spiral, you can get a nice curve to kind of mimic what you've got there. And if you don't worry about it. You can use your chain nose pliers to kind of help you round that wire off. But here you can see I'm a little bit off kilter, a little bit to the left with my spiral. So I'm going to take my chain nose pliers and bend on this right side toward the right. And then on the left side, I'm also going to bend it toward the right, just a little bit to straighten it all up. So there you can see we're all straightened back up again. Now we're going to grab the looping pliers yet once again. Grab the tail end of that wire with a 2mm barrel and create a loop at the top of your pendant. This is your bail. And there you can see our completed pendant frame. So it's coming along. Now we're going to grab the bench block and the chasing hammer, and we're just going to flatten this whole piece. One, this helps to work harden your piece, and two, it just gives a nice little shine because the light will reflect off of that flat surface. And there you can see that piece. You can see that shine reflecting off of there. And then sometimes when you're hammering, the loop will come apart or little parts will come loose, and you just need to kind of tighten everything up, make sure everything looks good. And there you can see we're all tidied up. But now I'm going to show you up close here. If you look closely, you could see some little tool marks, and the copper is just a little dull from hammering it. So with the magic of video editing, I'm going to show you the piece all polished now, and you can just really tell a difference here. There are different methods to polish metal. One is micro mesh polishing pads or sanding pads. You can use a polishing wheel. You can use a Dremel with the little felt polishing pad. Even the tumbler can help you polish a piece. Now I'm going to grab my 18 gauge wire, and I'm going to thread it through the top open loop there. And then I'm going to create my first wrap around the left side of that frame. So there's one wrap around, and then we're going to do a second wrap. And make sure we pull that nice and tight and push those wraps together. And then we're going to do a third wrap around here. And again, pulling it nice and tight. And then ensuring that those wraps are all pushed together nice and snug. All these little steps just make it look nicer, neater, and tidier in the end. And we're going to grab that 4mm bead and pop that on the end of this wire. And place it right up against the frame as far as we can there. And making sure those wraps are all the way up to the neck of where that bend is. And now taking the other end of this wire, we're going to wrap it at the bottom right side of that first loop. So we're going to pull that wire through, wrap it around the frame. So we have our first full wrap, and then the second one when we come back behind, up through, and our third wrap. Making sure we push those wraps nice and tight up against each other, and then pull that tight behind the piece. And there you can see those wraps and how tidy all that looks. We're going to grab the chain nose pliers and make sure we're completely tidied up there. And there's those wraps. Now we're going to flip the piece over and we are going to cut the ends of these wires off. So here we're going to trim this one with the flush cut side of our flush cutters. So we're going to flush cut the end of this wire as close to the frame as possible. And there's a slight little tail there, which we're going to burnish over the back side of our piece. So here you can see we're going to push that wire down and burnish it onto the frame. And there we can't feel anything. We don't want anything to be poking out to catch anyone's sweaters or anything. And then we're going to do the same thing with the other tail end of this wire. Flush cut the end, grab our chain nose pliers, and burnish that tail end of the wire down to the frame. And making sure your wraps are still snug up against each other when you do this. And there we're finished with that part. And there you can see what that looks like. And now we're going to grab the longer piece of the end of that wire that we cut off. And we're going to wrap another wrap around the base of this, the bottom loop, I should say, of the pendant. So the top right part of that bottom loop. There's our first wrap. Then we're going to do a second wrap. And I probably need to be using chain nose pliers. So grabbing this little tiny piece. So here I'm going to grab my chain nose pliers and get my third wrap in. Pulling that through and making sure it's nice and snug and tight around that frame. And then pushing those wraps right up against the neck or right up to that last bend there. And then we're going to straighten that weave-in wire and grab our 6mm Jasper bead. Pop that onto the end of the wire and set it down into the frame like that. And now we're going to make 3 more wraps through the frame, diagonally from where your last wraps were. So that's 1 full 2 wraps here, and now our third wrap. And once we bring that around to the back is our third wrap. And there you have that. And now again, grabbing our flush cutters, we are going to cut the end of this weaving wire. And making sure my wraps are nice and snug together there. And grab my chain nose pliers and burnish the end of that wire against the frame. Making sure there's no pokey bits there. Flip it over, make sure it's nice and tight on the other side. And now we're going to do the top side of this bead. So again, we're going to make sure we're all tight, making sure the wraps are all snug, and then flush cut the end of that wire. And then burnish that little bit of a tail against the frame on the back side of your pendant. As well as making sure all of your wraps are snug and tight, that everything's pushed up in the right place it's supposed to be in. And there you can see those beads are set in there now. And now we've got this top little piece. It's a little bit loose and wonky there, so we want to tighten that all up. We're going to use the last bit of our weaving wire, and we're going to weave around the inside part of the outside of the spiral. So we're going to put that into that last wire around the inner spiral there. And pull it out through the other side. And now we're going to wrap all the way around. We're going to wrap this 3 times around. So here we've got one wrap coming through. Grabbing my chain nose pliers because it's a little snug in here. So there we've got one full wrap. So we're wrapping 2 wires, that outside wire and the last wire from the spiral that we made. And now we're pushing that last wrap in through. And then grabbing the chain nose pliers and pulling it through there. And there we've got our second wrap. And now I'm going to take the other side of my wire and make my third wrap. So pulling it back around to the back, there's the third wrap. We're going to make sure those wraps are nice and tight up against each other. And now we need to secure the ends of these wires. So we're going to do 2 wraps around the outside wire, or the wire right below the bail. Just wrap around there twice. And then with the other tail end of the wire, we're going to do 2 wraps around the outside wire of this outer spiral, I guess you would call that. So there's the first wrap. And now we're going to do a second wrap. And I'm using my pliers to help me because I'm running short on weaving wire here. So the shorter it is, the harder it is to get it through these little spots, and chain nose pliers come in handy. There, we've got it wrapped all the way around. And now with my chain nose pliers, once again, we're going to flush cut the ends of those weaving wires, both the top and the bottom. And then, of course, we're going to burnish the ends of those wires down to the frame with our chain nose pliers. And there's the top one. Making sure it's all nice and snug and tight. We definitely don't want any wire sticking out. And there we've got our completed pendant. So now we're going to make a jump ring. So using our 3mm mandrel, I'm going to grab the very end of that 5cm piece of wire we had, the 18 gauge wire. And we're going to make a loop, and we're going to bring this wire past the tail end of itself until we make a perfect loop and go past. And here you can see we've got the beginning of a coil. And with my flush cutters, I'm going to flush cut the end of this wire. We want a nice, flat, smooth surface. So now we're going to flip our piece over and we're going to flush cut the other side of this ring. So the opposite direction we just cut the other end off. And we're going to discard that leftover piece, and there's our jump ring. So here with my flathead pliers and my chain nose pliers, I twisted that loop open. Place my pendant on that jump ring. And I'm also going to place my chain on the jump ring. I find it easier to do it this way. So there, I'm going to place it over that jump ring. And then I'm going to close my jump ring back up by twisting it back close. This just helps that loop or that ring to stay in shape. And there we have the completed pendant. I hope y'all enjoyed watching this video. Let me know in the comments below what you thought. Would you do something different? Maybe add to this design? Would you use a different wire? Did you like this project? I'd really like to hear your feedback. Did you know that you could become a member of my channel? You can get early access to my videos, get updates on what I'm doing in my studio, and hear or see some fun personal life updates. So if you'd like to get to know me on a more personal level, come join for as little as $2.99 a month. Now for the free stuff. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up. This just lets YouTube know that you enjoyed my content, and in turn, YouTube will push these videos out to even more creative people like yourself. If you haven't already and you'd like to see more of my tutorials, then click that subscribe button. It's free, and by subscribing to my channel, you can be notified when a new tutorial is up for you to view. Thank you guys for your continued support. I sure do appreciate each and every one of you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next Thursday.